Hi everyone, I'm going to do a demonstration today on making a painting of marbles from life. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the board that you're going to use. You could easily use something like this, matte board or illustration board, or if you have some other kind of hard surface that you want to use. Then we are going to use a piece of canvas paper. You can see the difference between the two sides because one is actually whiter than the other. So that means that it's been gessoed. The white side is the side that we are going to paint on. So I'm going to just set that on my matte board, take some painter's tape, and make a little half-inch border or quarter-inch border around the painting, and this will make sure it doesn't shift, and it also is nice because it will end up having a finished edge at the end. If you're not planning to frame it, you could always tack it up on the wall and it will already have a little border, so that's kind of nice. You don't have to tape it down too hard. You can just lightly tape it down, and you can kind of see through this tape, so you're able to see whether or not it's like straight or crooked, or if you have enough of it covered. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is get ready to set up our still life. So I have a piece of red paper, I have a marble already stuck on, and I'm using this tacky, sticky tacky stuff that you can use to put posters on the wall. And I'm going to put a tiny little bit under the marble so it won't roll away. Oops, it stuck to my finger. You could also use like hot glue or Elmer's glue. Put a little of this down. I have my little still life in the window light, and I'm going to fool around with how I want to compose my image. I want it to be unique, and I want the shadows to be interesting. Right now the shadows are coming in this direction. I'll slide this into the frame a little bit, make sure that you can see that. So I don't know, it looks okay to me, but I think that if I were going to make a composition of this, I would need to use a vertical orientation, because I want to crop in this direction. I want the shadows to fill the space, so I'm going to go in this direction. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is sketch out my shapes using burnt sienna. So I'm painting in acrylic today, and I'm going to use a small round brush, get a lot of water on my brush, and just really loosen up this burnt sienna paint to make it almost like a watercolor that is going to be what I use to sketch. And I want the marbles to fill the space pretty well, so they're going to need to be a decent size in the frame. The thing with burnt sienna is that you can always paint over it if you don't have your shapes completely correct. My shadow is going to go somewhere around here. I sort of have like a double shadow actually. You just kind of do double shadow. I'm going to put the last marble is I'm going to use my paintbrush to help me measure the space. And it can go a little darker to help you keep the shape correct and reshape it. I have one more marble. They're not actually touching. This one is going to go right here. A little space in between. And this marble is up the closest to me, so I don't want it to be smaller. I want all the marbles to feel about the same size because I'm very close to them, so they wouldn't be in major perspective. This is sort of how my shadows are looking. So now that I have the under drawing done, I'm going to start working on the marbles and the background, and I like to do both at the same time, particularly because the colors in the background will reflect into the marbles because they're glass. And sometimes the transparent marbles actually pick up a lot of the color behind it. So if I look at my color chart here, and I'll show you my color chart, the closest color that I can see here is Naphthol red light, so I have that paint right here. You're going to be using your paints at home for part of this assignment. You just have to do a little bit of extra mixing in order to get some of these colors. When painting from life, you don't have to quite be so specific about the colors matching perfectly. So I also like to look at my still life quite a bit. Sometimes I close one eye to really get a sense of the color of everything. I kind of let my eye sort of blur away where I'm not looking at it like it's a marble anymore, but more as blocks of color. So I really can start anywhere. I'm going to take some of the Naphthol red, put a little white into it to lighten it, and I might even put a little yellow into that. Do some mixing, and I'm just going to paint in some of that background color just to kind of establish the background a little bit. The green marble, which is right here, particularly because it's transparent, so I'm still going to be using some of this pink. I'm going to change my flat brush to a round brush at this point, just because it's a little bit smaller. I think I'll use this medium-sized one. It's a little bit smaller, and it allows you to kind of draw in the detail a little bit more. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix a green that is close enough to the green that I'm seeing. I'm using a little yellow, a little phyllocyanin green, some white. I need more yellow because it's kind of a yellowy green in the marble. Put some more water on my brush, and I'm going to dull it down a little by putting some of this red paint in. Okay, so I'm just going to actually establish the shape that's inside the marble. Doesn't go exactly to the edge at the top. I'm going to fill this in solid for now, but then what I'm going to do is mix a little side pile of a more yellowy green color and just kind of put some of that yellow back in. I'm also going to make a warmer green by putting burnt sienna and red into my green. I actually might try some cadmium red to make these colors instead of the Naphthol red. I think it's really dulling down the paint a little bit, so I'm going to try this out. So I made basically a darker olivey green that is going to be sort of my stripe within the marble. And like, you can be very expressive with this. I'm going to use some more yellow and make a light green color because there's a lot of these stripy change brushes. Now you want the paint to be thick, and I added some water and I made it a little too watery, so I'm gonna adjust that, and I'm gonna put in that lighter stripe of green. Still doesn't quite seem light enough, but we'll let it go for now. We're going to be doing the next marble. I put out a new palette with some fresh white, some cadmium yellow medium, because I'm going to be painting this marble right here, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and cobalt blue, just in case. And I'm going to need some red. I think I will stick to the cadmium red medium hue. And we're going to give this back yellow marble a shot. I'm doing this demonstration the next day, this part of the demonstration, and my light has changed. I'm going to do my best to kind of get a similar accuracy to what I had yesterday, but it is slightly different, so we'll keep that in mind. And I'm going to mix a color. The yellow here, it is definitely bright, but it almost has like a greenish tint to it. So I'm going to try some of this cobalt blue to get that green tone, which actually it does feel like that's sort of the color. It might be a little too blue though. So I'm going to scrape up that pile, put a little off to the side, and mix some more yellow into that little pile so that it's not quite that green, but there is a little bit of a green to it. Okay, so that I turned the lights up a little bit. My lights are they were dimmed, and that helps brighten up that marble a little bit, but it still has a green tone to it. So I am going to just grab one of my brushes and start drawing in the shape, really. So I'm going to take some of that bright yellow with a little bit of green in it, and I'm going to just start painting in the shapes that I see. The bottom has almost like a red reflection. So I'm going to get some of my red and mix it in, and I'm going to put that orangey red color down here a little bit. Rinse my brush. It's funny because the yellow marble is getting some of the reflection of that green in there, and that might be what is giving us that green hue. Put some of that in, and I'm realizing as I paint it down that it's definitely a little green, but it's not dark enough really. So I'm going to try a little burnt sienna mixed in with that green, and I'm going to rinse my brush again. Sometimes just establishing some of the shapes within the marble is going to help. So I'm going to mix some burnt sienna into my red, get a little water to loosen it up a little, and I'm going to put in this stripe right here.